Alright, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? We are streaming today. First time in a super long time. I don't remember the last time I actually streamed. I think it's back in like February or something. I think it was the last time that there was like a Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering thing. Which I remember doing. I don't remember too much of the information that came out at that time, but I decided like, hey, let's give this another shot. Let's go on stream. Let's talk about the new Final Fantasy stuff that came out. I saw a lot of it from just like friends and Reddit and Instagram and stuff like that. But I figured it'd be fun to go over it on stream, see if anyone hops in, wants to talk about anything, and like that. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
エバークライスのプロデューサーをしており、本セットにおいてはスクエニックス側のプロデューサーをしております。いよいよデビューショーケースが始まりますね。ずっとこの瞬間が訪れることを心待ちにしていました。まず最初に一言だけ言わせてください。本セットを期待や情熱を持って心待ちにしてくださった全ての方へ本当にありがとうございます。マジック、そしてファイナルファンタジーに愛を注いでくださった全ての皆様のおかげで今日という特別な日を迎えることができました。昨年10月の先行公開映像、今年2月のファーストルックとここまで長い旅路を共に歩んできましたが、ついに本日さらなる情報を皆様にお届けいたします。このセットはマジックとファイナルファンタジーを愛し続け、お互いが真剣に向かい続けたからこそこの素晴らしい形にできたものだと思っています。今回でファイナルファンタジーシリーズに初めて触れるマジックファンの皆様、このセットに登場するカードたちはファイナルファンタジーのストーリーやキャラクターらしさをしっかりと捉えた上でマジックのルールの中で再構築されています。
garner what the actual narrative in the Final Fantasy game is just from the cards. I find that highly unlikely, but you know. Let's get to the cards. So only thing anyone cares about, except for all those people who are like, oh, this doesn't add to the original MTG lore. Like, who cares? Please stop by a store near you, where you'll probably find that they're sold out. I think it's a really cool collab, though. Still.
Let's step into the world of Magic the Gathering.
People who, I don't know, I think it's a cool collab. I think it's a cool collab. I think it makes sense. I think they could have done so many worse collabs.
It's time to meet the team. He's a principal game designer on Magic the Gathering. You might know him at best as the host of Good Morning Magic. He's also been the lead designer on sets like Battle Bond, Mystery Booster, and most recently of all, oh yes, Final Fantasy. He
Mystery
is
Booster, huh?
Gavin Verhey.
Oh god. Does he wear that suit just to be like, hey look, I'm a nerd?
Oh, thank you. Gavin, what's your favorite Final Fantasy?
Well, that would be Final Fantasy 9. Whoa.
That's an interesting one.
Some true fans in the house out here tonight.
The war starts here. Okay, our next panelist is known for his work as the product architect of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, universes beyond Fallout, universes beyond Assassin's Creed and Bloomburrow. He is also the executive producer of Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy. He is the one and only Zakiel Gordon.
It's always kind of interesting to hear them like talk about these projects almost like they're films or something. Here's the producer, here's the executive producer, here's the key grip.
What's your favorite Final Fantasy?
My favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy X.
Ooh. Did Final Fantasy X get a bigger shout out than Final Fantasy 9?
Almost certainly it did.
Can I hear my 9 fans again? Can I hear my 9 fans? Can I hear my 10 fans?
Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy X is just
crazy,
generally
guys.
more popular.
That's crazy. Okay. Next up, he's a senior game designer of Magic the Gathering, probably best known for his work on Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. He is also responsible for mechanical frame and icon design across all sets. He is the lead game designer for Final Fantasy Commander decks. He is Daniel Holt.
I'm also trying to figure out the audio, because I don't know if my audio is like in a particularly good place. Just looking at everything, it doesn't seem to be, but
Here we
If
go.
anyone watches,
The
just
big
let me know.
question, everyone's waiting for it. What is your favorite Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy VI.
Like Zakil, it is Final Fantasy X-2. That is 10, comma 2.
Girls trip for life, baby.
Why wouldn't he say 10
Right,
also?
here we go. He's principal narrative game designer for Universes Beyond creative team.
Because
He's worked on
I still don't know if it's Final Fantasy X-2 or not. Based on what this guy said, it sounds like he thinks it's Final Fantasy X-2.
Narrative lead for Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy. It's Dylan Deveni for Final Fantasy.
I'm ready to tell you that my personal favorite Final Fantasy game is none other than Final Fantasy IV. That's right!
All these people are
A
fans
lot
of
of
Final
old
Fantasy
school
VII.
connoisseurs just got very excited there. So, here we are at the start of our journey. Final Fantasy I. The Magna Carta of video games, something that quite literally changed the landscape of gaming forever. Dylan, tell us the story.
I mean, it did. I don't know if I'd say it's the
When
Magna
darkness
Carta,
veils
but...
the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. This is the beginning of the genre-defining game that started it all. Final Fantasy I features the prophesized warriors of light as they embark on this adventure across time and space. Right, as the player, you can select from 4 of 6 possible jobs to become your warriors of light. And your first deadly challenge as the warriors of light are to take on none other than Garland, Knight of Cornelia.
This is not Garland, this is Kafka. That was a kind of confusing introduction for people who may not be aware.
And though Garland is keen to knock you down, the 4 warriors of light are triumphant, and they defeat their first adversary. But they incidentally create a paradoxical tie.
Interesting that this isn't just this doesn't say disturbed, because isn't this what disturbed is?
This game lays the foundation for many of the iconic elements we're going to see across all of the 16 mainline games. Things like prophecies and crystals, the job system, overworld exploration.
I just love the
random
quote,
encounters,
I,
leveling up,
Garland, will knock
high-stakes
you all down, which I'm
adventures,
sure is like
friendships, you name
a
it.
quote in the
This
game,
is
but
where we firmly
it's just
plant our
funny
foot
to
and
see a
decide this is what Final
flavor
Fantasy
text
is
with
going
the
to
person just
become.
declaring themselves in the flavor
So,
text.
Gavin, jobs and classes. How did you do that?
Yeah, we knew from the very beginning we needed to have a way to show off the jobs of Final Fantasy. And we talked about it for a long time and came up with the idea of a brand new mechanic that looks a little like an older mechanic called the Job Select. So this shows up on equipment throughout the set. And when the equipment comes into play, you make a 1/1 hero token, and then you attach the equipment to it. So if you know Magic,
living
you might
weapon?
recognize this as, say, Living Weapon, or for
Yeah.
Mirrodin, Living Weapon makes 0 0s, for Mirrodin makes 2 2s. There's a number between those two, which is 1 1. So we went for that here. Now, they all confer abilities, as you can see, that are really keen to what the class is doing. The White Mage Staff heals you, the Black Mage's Rod pings your opponent. But the other thing that's worth calling out in particular is they also confer the type that class or job has. So the White Mage's Staff turns you into a Cleric, the Black Mage's Rod
It's
turns you
interesting
into
that
a Wizard,
the
and so on.
equipment
So it's a
itself
little
isn't tribal.
flavor nod to
I think
happening right
I think
there.
that would have
We
been
grabbed
interesting.
all
It's
the
like, oh,
jobs
this is
select cards
wizard
from this set
equipment and this
from
is
Final
cleric
Fantasy
equipment.
1
I think that would have been a cool
and
thing. I don't know
Final
why they didn't do that,
Fantasy
but
14, which you might see some of
not that big a
later.
deal.
Oh, what a tease. Thank you, all 4 of you, but I do believe it is time to meet the last member of our panel. She is an art director on Magic the Gathering. She's worked on Universes Beyond sets such as Assassin's Creed, Doctor Who, and of course, Final Fantasy. Joining us on video, it's Stephanie Chung.
Hey PAX East, I'm so excited to share our next card with you. Long before I ever played my first game in the Final Fantasy series, I was already obsessed with their iconic character designs. It was influence on my own journey as an artist and deepened my love for video games. So I think you'll all agree that it wouldn't be Final Fantasy if we didn't include art from the legendary Yoshitaka Amano. And what better way to celebrate his influence and
Isn't his just the
incredible
like
talent
bonus
than
sheet
his
cards?
original Cloud Sea Jin. This incredible piece is
Yeah,
featured in
I think they're just the
showcase
bonus
frame
sheet
you've
cards,
seen
which feels a
before.
little weird.
The transparent frame
Oh,
allows
that's
us
right.
to show off the art with minimal distractions from mechanics and text.
They announced it last time, didn't they? That like all of his are gonna be like
Masterful washes of ink. This piece
like
is a
it's
great
not gonna
example
be
of
original
iconic
art. It's
style,
gonna be
especially
like
with the
concept
incredible
art for
way
the games that already was like
space.
released, like
Pale
with the
clouds
game.
contrasting the dark figure of the Jinn to the flow of details from the
It's
Jinn's
an interesting
hand,
decision. I don't know if
cascading around
I
the party
personally
and
agree with it,
spilling
but
into the clouds around them. The card also isn't anything to sneeze at. Nyx Bloom Ancient is a flashy card that is a dream for any Stompy deck.
Thank you. We are going to be hearing from Stephanie throughout the show, and now we are underway.
And like the bonus sheet cards are cool, but like I'm definitely a lot more of like
This is more a high fantasy, expanding and iterating on the ideas that were laid down in one.
I'm definitely a lot more interested in like the actual
Yeah, absolutely.
new
So
cards and new
Final Fantasy
mechanics.
II is tonally very similar in creative tone. The main difference lies in a game mechanic called weapon skill, which is based on your proficiency as you wield weapons in battle and gain experience throughout the game. So, it only makes sense for the main character of Final Fantasy II, Firion, to interact with equipment. So let's take a look. Firion is a 3-mana 3/3 that equipped creatures you control have haste, and whenever another equipment comes into the battlefield, you create a copy of that, and it has the ability to cost 2 less to equip. So we just showed you White Mage's Rod. If you have this in play and cast that, not only do you get another copy of that equipment, but you also get another 1/1 hero. And then similarly, the next card on our Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus sheet is SRAM. Red-White, of course, is a prolific archetype within Magic, all revolving around equipment, and we think this is a brand new way to be able to collect beautiful artwork by Yoshitaka Amano and play both of these copies of
creatures you control have haste.
alongside each other on the battlefield.
I probably want that for my a deck that I'm brewing up.
And Ari in exactly the right places.
Maybe.
Really
I'd rather it
validates
be
all their
modified
work.
creatures than
Thank
equipped
you so
creatures,
much.
but
I am eager to see more cards, and it's written down here. It says, I am as eager as a beaver. Gavin, explain yourself.
All right, so I want to give a big shout out to Yanni Skalnick, who led the early vision design of the set. And when he handed it off to me, there's a card in there called Commune with Beavers. And I was like, Yanni, you got to tell me what's going on with this card. And he told me the story about talking with beavers, get the information that you need. And I was like, we have to preserve this. So it stayed the whole way through the entire life cycle of
I think I
this
need to
set.
get a more
Now, this, to me, this is a
surrounding
great
pop filter
blending
for my
of Magic and Final Fantasy. Because a
microphone.
Commune spell in Magic looks at your top few cards for a card, and so it kind of blends the flavor of Final Fantasy, the name Commune with Beavers, with a Magic effect, where of course it looks at your top few cards for a beaver or any other creature you might want to have around. So just a simple little common, but kind of gets at the whimsy that Final Fantasy has, right? There's a lot of epic fights and incredible monsters, and also sometimes just guy speaks beaver, you know? And that's the important part of this moment here on this card.
I like to think that we all speak beaver. Moving swiftly on.
Was that supposed to be like a sexual innuendo? Everyone thought that was way funnier than it
We're
actually
moving on
was.
from 2 to guess what? Number 3. Final Fantasy 3. It's worth remembering that both 2 and 3 didn't release in the US until years later. But there is one thing that kind of remains true, which is the defining iconography of the crystals. Dylan, walk us through this.
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought up crystals, right? We're going to talk about crystals a lot throughout the show, and it is a signature element of Final Fantasy. So in Final Fantasy 3, our characters are going to go on a journey, the Onion Knights that become the Warriors of Light, go on a journey to bring balance to the elemental crystals across the land, just as the Golden People
I did play this
prophesized.
game
And so
when they
we were
remade it for
talking
the
about how we were gonna bring this
Nintendo
element
DS.
into Magic the Gathering, and we
I did not get
decided
that far, to be
well,
honest.
there's 4 elemental crystals, and there are the dark crystals in the malevolent world of darkness. Perhaps we smell a cycle. So let's take a little bit more look at the darkness crystal. Daniel, I want to hear about the tiny crystal we see here.
Yeah, as Dylan mentioned, crystals are so prominent within Final Fantasy that it only made sense when working on the set symbol that was the first spot we went. You'll see the Chocobo later in Commander. We'll talk about that when we get there. But you can see this rarity symbol here is the crystal. Gavin, you want to talk about the card?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as was mentioned earlier, yeah, well, there's the nice booster fun version. And by the way,
The borderless one's
there's
nice.
5 crystals in the set, 1 for each color, and they all have a cool booster fun version like this you can go collect. Now, they are a 5-card cycle, 1 for each color.
I've
They
never
all
heard that
cost
phrase,
4
booster
mana, they're all
fun
legendary
version.
artifacts. They all make spells of that color.
Does he mean
less,
like because
but
you have to
the
buy
rest
more
of them
packs
is a little
probably
unique
to get
depending
it?
on what that crystal does.
Because they're rare?
It's got a big
I don't
activating
know.
ability of some kind, a cool static ability. I'll let all of you start speculating now. But the crystals, you're going to want to try and get all of them on your side.
So Gavin, earlier you mentioned starting towns. I believe right now you have a new land to show us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, if you're playing Final Fantasy, there's, once again, these huge epic battles, but you also want some simple little concepts, especially at common, like this Adventurer's Inn. So, this is a brand
cute,
new
I guess.
land subtype. This is a town. You'll find towns all throughout the set in Final Fantasy.
I mean,
and many
Adventures in is
places and
specifically a
locations that you'll end
building
up
in
at.
a town.
If you've
It's not the
played
whole
Ravnica
town.
before, it's kind of like Gates, where there are some cards that key into what towns do. It doesn't have any inherent meaning. And there's a lot of lands ranging from simple commons all the way up to rares, and maybe, just maybe, we might see a rare one later on. But here you go, a nice little Adventurers Inn.
No
Of course,
mythics,
what would
huh?
an inn do?
That'd be
Give
dope.
you back a couple
Be
life.
weird.
Take a nice rest. If you've got the money for it, get those 2 life.
So that's a lovely little taste of Final Fantasy 3. Let's move on to Final Fantasy 4. Dylan, you have been waiting for this moment.
Has he?
Yes,
It's like,
I
oh, his
have.
favorite
Thank
Final
you
Fantasy
also. I
4
like
though.
really love that, and I needed that. So thank you. So yes, I would love to talk about my personal favorite Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 4 holds a very, very special place in my heart because I think it was the first time I really discovered what narrative game design was and the power of the medium when I was very, very young on my Super Nintendo. The journey that Cecil goes through, starting as a Dark Knight, wielding very wicked power in service to the potentially corrupt King of Baron. He goes on this journey of redemption to become a paladin of light. And we were talking about this story, and I was telling Gavin, I was like, listen, this story meant a lot to me because in the game, right, you have this amazing Dark Knight sprite, you go to Mount Ordeals, you claim your sword, and you
I
become
remember this
a
concept being
paladin,
cool.
and then you have to fight yourself in this 1v1 battle to come to terms with your darkness, slay your inner evils, and truly become a paladin. And so this story was so important to me personally. It's something that made
terrible.
me fall
It's
in love
interesting
with Final
again.
Fantasy, and it was a story that we, I think, did a pretty good job of.
It's cool because
Yeah,
it'll
and, you know,
benefit really
we brought
strongly
the
in
story to life. We're trying to figure out how to tell this story, and one of the tools we have in this set
like
are
a
double-sided cards, right?
life
So you see these double-faced cards here with Cecil,
drain
where
deck.
he starts off as the Dark Knight and then transforms into the Redeemed Paladin. Final Fantasy has so many moments for villains and heroes alike where they undergo these great transformations, and there's several double-faced cards in the set that do just that, where you get to see the characters evolve before your very eyes. And also on screen here, you'll see that gorgeous Booster Fun version of Cecil, which is really, really, really neat. And I'm so glad we were able to capture this. I was inspired by Death's Shadow, if any of you Magic players out there know that card, to make a card that dealt damage to you, and then eventually it flips over to be a 4/4 lifelinker and start gaining that life right on back.
Reminds me
But
of
Cecil
Chalice
is not
Life.
the only card.
I love everyone here so much.
Cecil is not the only card that we wanted to design from Final Fantasy IV, and a character that posed a lot of trouble for me was Kain. I kept trying to design Kain, I could not figure out how to do it, and then one day, Dylan sends me something.
I was like, Gavin, I don't want to snoop in, I don't want to step on your toes, but I really like this game, I really like this character, I have a pitch that I'm going to send you, and he was very nice enough to read it, he went over it, and he looked at me and was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we kind of moved forward to trying to capture one of Kain's most complicated story elements. If you are a fan of this game, or if you've played this game, you felt the same heartbreak and betrayal that I did when you went up into that boss battle and you're like, wait, what do you mean he left my party? What do you mean he's fighting for Golbez? Where is he going? And so we wanted to capture that sense at the table when you play it. So I had this idea, maybe he defects, maybe he passes around, you know, there is...
It's interesting with the idea. It's like, oh well, hopefully this makes you into Final Fantasy. Gets you into Final Fantasy. It's like, oh well, it's really cool that like it might get me into Final Fantasy. Good thing they're spoiling every key story point from every game.
First ever Magic card published. So big hand for Dylan right here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
His childhood favorite character as a card. That's pretty cool.
Right, let's move on. It's time for Final Fantasy V. And whilst we do, Okay, good for you. That's nice. Not many, but good for you.
This guy kind of
as we
seems
head
like a
on to
dick.
Final Fantasy V, obviously a very, very beloved game. I want us to take a step
Like
back
everything he
figure
says
out,
makes him come off as a
explain to us
douche.
how you arrived at the overall shape of this set.
Yeah, so that's a monumental question and a very good one of how did we fit 16 Final Fantasy games into one set. There are a lot of characters, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of games, magic, spells, items, abilities, lands, adventures, quests, mini games, songs, and how do we put it all into one thing? We needed something early on to help make decisions.
Hey.
So if you can imagine the four of us in a room at the Wizards of the Coast office with a locked door, we made a conspiracy board on the wall, we opened up an Excel sheet, we got the whiteboard, and we wrote down every game, and we just said, okay, What do you remember about Final Fantasy 1? Go way back in the archives, go deep in the tank. What do you remember loving about this game? And we did that for 2, 3, all the way up for every single game. And then when we were done with that, weeks later, we went to our fellow wizards in the office. I asked everyone the same intense line of questioning. And then when we were done with that, weeks later, we went to Square Enix and we talked to the game producers and the designers and the developers, and we were like, what were you very proud of with your game? What is very special about the title that you worked on? What is the thing that you would want everyone to see once again? And once we had all of that, we were able to start our process. So from there, we kind of made this internal tier system, tiers 1, 2, and 3, to help us make decisions. These weren't like, oh, these are the best and these are the worst. These are just, we need to make some decisions along the way. Some characters will be here, some characters won't be here. So tier 1, we decided was, these are the things that have to be here. These are the DNA of Final Fantasy. So chocobos, moogles, they absolutely have to be there. You expect to see them, so you're going to see them. Tier 2 are like, hey, if you're a fan of a very specific game, you're going to recognize it. Maybe it's an iconic mini game, or an NPC that you fell in love with, or a super boss you spent many hours losing against, like me. And then tier 3 was the super duper crunchy deep cut. This is for the nerds. No way you spent time and money to get that in. Yes, we did. We had to do that. And so I really look forward to all of you, and I challenge all of you to go through and find the tier 3s that we snuck in there across the set.
Okay, then, Dylan.
Took them long enough.
Which tier is this cheeky boy in?
Probably tier 1, right?
Gilgamesh is clearly the top tier. This is a recurring villain who plays kind of the comic relief in the game. He has a passion for weapons, and that's exactly what his card does. It's a titanic ability. If you're familiar with Magic, a Titan ability, it enters and attacks. He searches for those equipment. He looks at the top 6 cards of your library, gets all of those equipment onto the battlefield.
Triggered abilities when they enter or attack. I didn't realize that was called a Titan ability.
One of them goes for free onto any samurai you control, whether it's from Kamigawa, whether it's Gilgamesh himself. Snaps onto that samurai and gets to fighting.
Thank you so much for the ooze again.
Yeah, I've been working on a samurai deck. I saw that card and I was like, oh, that card's good for deck I'm building. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the Universes Beyond program, one of my favorite things is we get to tailor each set based on the IP and audience that we're working with. So our language to you as Magic players and as Final Fantasy fans is through the lens of design. Now, internally, we have this thing called a complexity dial that kind of goes from 1 to 5, with 1 being kind of our intro level products and 5 being our more complex products like a Horizon set. Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy is a little bit higher on that dial, specifically because you all as video game players and specifically RPG fans already innately understand a lot of aspects of game development. We don't have to explain the idea of health or mana or damage or items or party configuration or the difference between.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
So internally, we just really had the rule of cool to make sure that we made the best versions of each character, went through Magic's archives to bring back all of the most awesome.
They could have more. They felt they could have more complicated card design in this than in other sets because this one wouldn't be targeting noobs or something. That seems odd.
Very interesting ability. And that is Affinity for Birds. So Affinity is a long-time Magic mechanic that has been around for more than 20 years, and this is a way in which we're able to build specific.
It might be cool to make a deck around this one, like a bird tribal deck, which is pretty weird, but you know, why not?
Control deals damage to your opponents, which we think will be pretty fun.
Especially in mono green.
I gotta say, in our internal testing, I was always on Team Birds. I love the standard. You can take like your Bloomborough birds and your chocobos and put them together to make a cool deck. So count me in as a bird fan. Go Birds.
Just as a vibe check, have we got any bird fans in the audience? I like you so much. Okay.
Well, I just don't understand this person. His personality is like, it's like dry and rude. I mean, I'm assuming most of the time is going to be spent on like Final Fantasy. Well, the plurality of the time is going to be spent on Final Fantasy 7. Be my guess, because that's the one that so far at least seems like it has the most content coming from it.
Final Fantasy 6 is the first of 4 games that have Commander decks. Is that correct?
That's true. We get to talk about Commander. This is the first of
That's true, because there's
4 Commander decks. Commander
6,
decks, if you're not
7,
familiar, are
10, and 14, I think, are the games that have Commander decks.
Around Final Fantasy 6 as the other games when we get to them. This deck specifically, we focused on the second half of the Final Fantasy 6 game to set you up for story. Kefka just won, the world's in ruin, all your party members are scattered across the
Again, they're like, if you haven't played Final Fantasy, this will make you want to play Final Fantasy, and we're going to ruin every major story point for you.
Her trance ability, when she attacks, she'll get an evasive so she can connect in, but she's also going to fill your graveyard with your party members and friends. Then when she connects, you're going to bring them back, you're going to get the party together, and you're going to go conquer Kefka.
Pretty cool. Do you want to show us a little bit how summons might work in this game?
Wow, an art
Well, it
card.
wouldn't be Final Fantasy without summons. With Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy, we introduced it as Saga Creatures. These are both creatures and sagas. So you'll get your creature out. Summon Esper Valagramande has haste, so it'll attack right away. But as the turns pass, you'll tick down, get
Saga
those
Creatures
abilities.
is a
The
cool
first
idea.
one, you're going to be pulling resources from all graveyards, all those non-creature spells. And over time, you're going to get mana to cast those spells. And at the end of the chapter, it's going to go away in an epic conclusion.
Wow. So, do we have any Terra fans in the audience? I like Terra Held of Hope, but here's the card. I think we've shown it. She looks pretty good, right? Here's Stephanie to tell us a little bit more.
I saw this card. This card seemed pretty cool.
Thanks, Ben. You may have noticed that there is something very special about these two paintings. In our Final Fantasy Artist Series, we've invited 9 incredible artists from Square Enix to illustrate any character from the Final Fantasy franchise. They were not limited to the series that they worked on, but invited to illustrate any character, especially ones that they have always wanted to paint. So not only are these painted by the one and only Yoshitaka Amano, but these are brand new paintings of Terra, never before seen until this Universes Beyond.
Oh, well, that's good.
partnership.
Okay,
without further
so the
ado,
bonus sheets are
here's
going to
a
be
special
concept art that's
message
already
from Amano
existed, but
himself.
they're these alt arts of the characters.
ファイナルファンタジーはね、やっぱりずっとやってきてるし、
Or am I just making an assumption that they're alt arts? Are these the normal arts and there's going to be
こ
other
っちは
arts?
もうね、
Or is
な
this
る
going to
べ
be only
く
art?
非常識の絵を描こうっていうことで、とらわれないで描きました。これはもう状況がもういっちゃってるんですよね。炎の中に入ってるっていうんですかね。ケフカはもうめちゃくちゃですね。狂った色、いろんな色が入った方がいいんじゃないかなっていうイメージみたいなぼやっとしたものがあって、それを形にしていく、その行為が楽しいというか、まずその通常のティナは剣持ってて空挺がいっぱいいてっていうファイナルファンタジーの世界をちょっともう一回表現してみる。こっちの変身後の方は最初にキャラクター作った時以外はあんまり描いてないんですよね。あの時はもう少しこう腕掘りもさ
That
れてま
Esper
した
design
けど、
is pretty
こ
cool.
れはちょっとリアルにしたんですけど、おお、かっこいいですね。素晴らしいです。素晴らしいですね。へえ。小さいんですけども、すごいこう重みがあるというんですかね。マジックとファイナルファンタジーのコラボレーション、皆さん楽しんでください。
So if we're going to get art from Amano to put on our cards, we had better make some pretty awesome magic cards. And that's what you're seeing here with Terra. So on her front face, she comes down. She finds you an enchantment. One of those saga creatures, perhaps. Something that she can summon. When it's time, you can flip her over to her other side, literally turn the card over to unlock Esper Terra. She copies an enchantment that you have and does something we've never done in Magic before, which lets you kind of set it on the chapter counter you want, get the abilities you want, then it goes away. After her 4 chapters are done, she adds 10 mana to your pool, which for all you astute Magic fans in the audience, you might notice that she is green and red, and she starts adding white, blue, and black, which is of course the Esper color combination in Magic the Gathering. She flips back over to the
Oh,
front
that's
side,
true. I didn't
and then
even
you can do it
think of
all
that.
over again. Plus, get that Enter's ability to grab another enchantment. A really powerful Magic card, and
Yeah,
really
that card
worthy
seems
of this
pretty nuts.
incredible artwork.
All right. Dylan, please would you bring us up to speed on the narrative of Final Fantasy VI?
So it sounds like we have a lot of Final Fantasy VI fans here in the audience today.
And
But
this
if
is
you
off.
haven't played this
Yeah, I mean, I'll
wonderful game yet,
check
I'm just
that
gonna
out
spin you a picture
once
so we
I'm
all
done
understand
streaming here.
what we're talking about here. So Final Fantasy VI is an epic told in 2 parts. The first half of the story revolves around the conflict between the Gestalian Empire and the Returners Resistance movement. It takes on a very classic shape of a Final Fantasy story, right? We're introduced to our many beloved cast of characters like Terra, Celeste, Locke, and eventually we see them all come together, rally to battle against Kefka, one of video games' most iconic villains of all time. But of course, as the chosen heroes to save the world from the villain of this game, you would expect that when you go up against Kefka, you are victorious. But perhaps, as Daniel alluded previously, something special about Final Fantasy VI is halfway through the game, you lose. And so, the
Wow,
second
that's
part
great.
of this game
Way to,
is about
like
the
I said,
world of
ruin the
where
entire
Kefka
story
has
for
become
everyone.
the ruler of all. He has become all-powerful and is the master of all magic. So, your party is scattered to the winds. Eventually, Celeste, Terra come back together. You rally everyone to take on Kefka one more time and eventually conquer the ruler of Ruin.
So, Gavin, do you want to take us through this card?
Yeah, this is a very special one, Ben. So, of course, featuring that amazing artwork by Amano, a blue, black, and red legend. When Kefka enters, you play a little mini-game. Each player is going to discard some cards, and then you get to draw some cards back up. Well fitting of kind of the mini-game aspect that Kefka has. But when it is time to go to the world of Ruin, you can pay 8 mana. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent, the world gets a little ruined, and then you flip Kefka over. 5/7, flying. It can attack right away the turn you flip it over, of course, as long as it's been played for a turn. You hit your opponent, you draw 5 more cards, and then as long as Kefka's in play, whenever an opponent loses life, you draw that many cards. It is very hard
Well,
to come
during your
back
own turn,
getting hit
that's
by
very
Kefka,
important.
just as it should be.
Okay, there you have it.
Yeah, just whenever they lose life, I mean, that would be busted. You would also make yourself a target in like a multiplayer commander game, because then everyone is incentivized not to attack anyone else.
A little break for a few minutes. So please give it up for our panelists. Thank you so much. Let's bring our panelists back onto the stage. Gavin, Zakil, Dylan, Daniel, let's rejoin.
It's weird. I don't think when I went to MagicCon. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess this isn't MagicCon, but when I went to MagicCon, I don't think they had like breaks in between sections of like the same showcase.
Okay. That was incredibly well planned. Let's go. I want everyone to settle down, and I recognize that we can't really jump back immediately into Final Fantasy VII. I think we need to jump into something a little fun. I think we need to jump into something, dare I say, a little cute.
It's true. Everyone doesn't think of Final Fantasy VII as being fun. Is this gonna be like the Chocobo thing? Yeah. There's gonna be only 77 of these freaking Chocobos. It's wild.
Wow, that's Quasi. That's not in the cards. I just said that myself. Okay, Zakil, talk us through this.
Yeah, oh man, I love Chocobos. Right here is our flagship Chocobo, Ad Mythic in Traveling Chocobo. It is a 3-mana 3/2 that allows you to look at the top card of your library, as well as cast and play birds and lands from the top. Earlier, we showed you Bartz and Boko, who interacts within the bird archetype within the set. That card enters the battlefield and deals damage birds deal damage off that trigger. This card also doubles those triggers, and we knew that Chocobos are such an important part of the Final Fantasy franchise that we had to do something really special. So enter our colorful.
But there's like
Chocobos.
multiple different Chocobo cards,
Four of
right?
them in
Like, I
neon
mean,
ink,
I
in
mean, other
yellow,
than like the
pink,
colors.
green, and blue.
But
These
I
are
know
found
there's
in all-language
the
collector
baby
boosters.
Chocobo,
And
right?
during development, as we
So that
were
card has like
putting
a
this together,
landfall
we worked
effect where I
very
think it's a
closely
1/1
with
counter for every
Final
land that
Fantasy VII
enters.
creative director Tetsuya Nomura, who really
If I
loved the
recall
idea.
correctly.
One of his producers during development told us that his favorite Chocobo from the original Final Fantasy VII was the black Chocobo named Teo, because he was the fastest one in the original minigame, and it held a very special place in his heart. So kind of we built this last card in kind of as a secret in the background and surprised Tetsuya Nomura. So that card is exclusively found printed in Japanese and available in all language collector boosters as a nod to that story for him. And then the lone serialized card in Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy is the Golden Chocobo. This card is only available in English collector boosters and is serialized out of 77 for Final Fantasy VII.
Those are going to be very expensive cards.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Give a round of applause for Chocobos. Okay, now we move on to a little bijou game called Final Fantasy VII.
A lot of the Final Fantasy VII
Never heard of it.
cards that I've seen are pretty good.
It really
very funny.
is an amazing video game,
person.
and it has a huge reputation. Dylan, this game is huge.
So huge, in fact, that on the original release for PlayStation, it came in 3 discs. If you were an old school gamer, if you were there back in the day, you knew you were in for a wild time when your game came in multiple discs, especially for an RPG. So, walk with me. Final Fantasy VII follows the story of Cloud Strife, ex-soldier and current mercenary, as he winds up in this broiling conflict between the Shinra Electric Company and the anti-Shinra resistance group, Avalanche. Cloud's adventure begins in Midgar, of course, the city of Mako, and this world that we're introduced to is inspired by these science fantasy aesthetics and these kind of cyberpunk-inspired themes, and the first disc is just about this amazing adventure that brings together the core cast of characters like Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, Red 13, as they battle against Shinra, and ultimately learn of a deadlier threat looming on the horizon, Sephiroth.
Please insert disc 2.
Disc 2 launches us into the open world, traveling across the lands, battling monsters, riding Chocobo, collecting materia, and visiting many iconic locations like the Gold Saucer and Cosmo Canyon. And we get to meet more allies like Kate Sith and Sid Highwind, and if you're going for the full experience in the original release, you spend a lot of time recruiting Yuffie and Vincent. The stakes become higher, we learn more about the Ancients and Genova, Sephiroth's master plan, and Cloud's increasingly mysterious backstory.
Please insert.
Oh, okay, we want to do disc 3, so finally, in the ultimate finale, we hit the major climax.
Does
Plot
Final
twists,
Fantasy VIII have multiple
shocking
discs? I don't even
character
know.
deaths, cataclysmic boss battles, and a final gauntlet against Genova and Sephiroth to save the world. So I've taken you on this extended and somewhat silly journey just to kind of remind all of us how much content we needed to fit into this set just from Final Fantasy VII.
So, there are obviously some amazing cards. Let's get to it. Gavin, let's show us one.
All right, well, we have to have the characters from Final Fantasy VII, of course. So how about Cloud? We knew we had to do Cloud. Obviously, we're going to do Cloud, but what was Cloud going to do? How are we going to make him a card that was worthy of the Cloud mantle? Well, the first thing Cloud does when he comes into play is go and find an equipment. Of course, he's got to find his sword. That's critical. Now, if you are a long-time Magic player, you might know about a card called Stoneforge Mystic. Very powerful Magic card. Cloud is a little bit reminiscent of that, finding you any equipment you want. It also doubles all the abilities conferred by that equipment. So you put, say, an old school Sword of Fire and Ice or Sword of Feast and Famine on him, boom, you're doubling up all those triggers. So there's a lot of really powerful stuff you can do with Cloud. This card is incredible and well worthy of being Cloud.
Oh, I didn't actually see what the...
Now you might be
I haven't seen the
wondering,
Buster Sword yet.
what is Cloud going to find? What kind of stuff might you want to find with Cloud? Well, there's a card in the set called Buster Sword. That's some pretty good news, right? Would you all like to see the Buster Sword?
So what does it do?
Well, I'm not going to show it to you. You can stay tuned to find out what the Buster Sword does in the days to come, but I can tell you that it's 3 mana, curves right off of a Cloud, and it's pretty good on Cloud himself.
Oh, not showing it to us. Quite literally the definition of a double-edged sword. Zakil, what's next?
Our next card, in my opinion, is one of the most iconic characters in video game history. He has brought excitement, joy,
Yeah, this
and
Sephiroth
terror
is
to
pretty
millions
busted.
of fans around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege to introduce to you, illustrated by none other than Tetsuya Nomura, Sephiroth. So Stephanie mentioned earlier that there were 9 artists from Square Enix who created illustrations exclusively for this project. One of those artists, of course, was Tetsuya Nomura. They all had the choice to pick any character from the Final Fantasy series that they wanted to illustrate, and we would make sure that they had a card. One of Nomura's missions when he drew this illustration was to really narrate the progression that the character has in his multiple different forms. So if we look on the left at the bottom, you have child Sephiroth that was introduced in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, who of course then grows up into adult Sephiroth from the original game, who then transforms into his penultimate form in Bizarro Sephiroth, which then leads to the end-all, be-all, most powerful version in Safer Sephiroth. So, do you all want to see his card?
It's pretty stupid.
So let's check out Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier. He's a 3-mana 3/3. Whenever he enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. Then, whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And if this is the 4th time this ability is triggered, transform Sephiroth into Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, who is
That
a
transformation,
5/5 legendary
like
creature,
a
angel,
4th time
nightmare,
that's happened in the turn, like
with
that
flying
sounds
and
like
the
it's
ability
hard, but it's really not
Supernova.
for a
As
deck
this
that
creature
wants to
transforms,
do
you
that.
gain an emblem
It
with the
might
same
as well
ability
not
from the
even
front
have
side,
it.
and
Might
is
not even
capped
have
off
that
with,
condition.
Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures. If you do, draw that many cards. This is the
fact that
second
when he-
ever creature in Magic the Gathering to produce an emblem. This is the card that I think went through the most design iterations. It felt like we had a new build of Sephiroth every single month within development, because we wanted to make sure his card was special and he would have a grand
Well,
entrance
there's
into
also like
Magic the Gathering.
at least
Amazing.
2, if
Okay,
not
let's
3
move
other
on.
versions of Sephiroth.
So
There's
many
two-
amazing
there's 2 other
characters in
versions of
Final
Sephiroth that I
Fantasy
know.
VII. Here's one. Dylan.
We're going to talk about the story of Sephiroth and Cloud. Of course, we're going to talk about Aerith herself. So here we can see Aerith is the white mage and healer of the party. She's here to protect you. She's here to heal you. And she has a third ability that may or may not be related to a story beat. So if you're a fan, let us know if that happens to be relevant or not. I'm not sure myself.
Yeah. Spoiler alert on that card for some reason. Okay,
That hasn't
let's
stopped
moving
you
on.
from all the other spoilers.
We see
It's
this
funny,
beautiful
the one
version
spoiler that
of
everyone
the Flower
from
Girl
knows from
herself.
Final Fantasy is the
But
one that
we're
they
not
just don't want
gonna
to
talk about
say
Aerith today. We're
directly.
also going to talk about Tifa. So we see 2 Tifas here, and I actually see a Tifa here in the front row. You look fantastic. The one on the left here is Tifa Lockhart. This is her main set card, and I just want to personally attest. I have won so many games in-house with this card, and I've lost even more games against this card. She is very, very powerful, but it's not the only Tifa that we have. Dan, you want to talk about the Commander version?
Put
Right, you
Tifa
see that
Lockhart in my
Chocobo symbol that
landfall
we've been
deck, I
talking
don't
about
know.
Commander. This is the secondary commander for the Commander deck for Final Fantasy VII. This is Tifa. She has melee. I put that on pretty early on. You know, martial artist. She gets in there. But the second ability I was struggling with for a little bit of while. And then Dylan joined the game design team pretty late, and he's like, hey, what if you focused on this? So we leaned into that extra attack. That's what she does in the game. You're trying to get combos going. And so whenever you attack with melee, you get to power 7 or greater, which is the sub-theme of the deck. You get those extra combats. So as you guessed, there is a full Final Fantasy VII Commander deck led by none other than Cloud himself.
It's funny because they
is
showed
an
all these
equipment deck
commander
with
decks
that
like the
sub-theme
last
of
time
power
that they
7
did
or greater.
they
So
did
in
one
this
of
deck,
these.
you'll
I don't
find
know why they're
every
showing
party
them
member you
again.
come to expect, maybe some villains in here as well, and all the iconic equipment like a Buster Sword, Yuffie Shuriken, Tifa's boots, everything you'd expect to find. And then with that Cloud as the face commander, he's tying everything together. He gets in there with that haste magic. He gets a free equipment, and then whenever he attacks, you draw a card for each attacking member of your team that is suited up. And then if his power is 7 or more, he gets paid as that mercenary to cast those spells.
Incredible. Right. Here we are. Finally, the game I've been waiting for, and hopefully all of you have. Final Fantasy VIII.
It's interesting because like the gallery that they have online, just a lot more cards
Quite
than this.
literally
There's
the
a
game
lot
that
more
changed my
Final
life,
Fantasy
so this is
VII
a very
cards.
emotional moment for me. Dylan, let's talk about this game.
There is so much to love and appreciate about Final Fantasy VIII. I'm so happy you all cheered so loud for this game. So Final Fantasy VIII kind of pushes what we understand fantasy to be as a genre.
My
right?
desk
It
has
really
all these really
leans
like
into a lot
sharp
of
parts on it, and
esoteric
it's like
ideas.
I want
If we
them
all
to
remember
not
Squall
be there
Dreaming of
anymore.
Laguna and events of
always
the
rip my
past,
frickin'
trying to
pants.
figure out how to stop the future, and then ultimately we go up against Ultimisia, whose whole plan harkens back to Chaos from Final Fantasy I to compress time and space into one massive power source for her to become an ascendant being. This story explores depth upon layer upon layer of how we understand fantasy to be in a modernized setting. I see why you love it so much.
I do. Daniel, let's talk us through this card here.
Well,
My
as-
boy Squall.
As Renoa once said, he's the best looking guy here. It's Squall. He's a bit of a lone wolf character, so that's what his abilities represent. With that rough divide, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets double strike. Why is that important? The second ability, whenever he deals damage to a player, you get to return any non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. You got double strike, you're
No,
doing that
it's
twice.
not non-land permanent. It
I
includes
think we have a
lands.
booster fund version to show
That
as
is
well. with
return
that full
targeted
art.
permanent card with
Yeah,
mana
there
value
it
3
is.
or less. Lands have
And
less
I
than
did
mana value
mention
3,
Renoa at
so
the
that
beginning of the
includes
kill. Maybe we
lands.
should show her card.
Yeah.
Cool that he knows how
Here
the game
we
works.
have Renoa Harlily.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, Renoa is a close friend of Squall, and mechanically is known for battling alongside her dog, Angelo. So it would only be right for her to have the ability Angelo Cannon in combat. When you attack, if you have a very large party, you get a buff. Angelo, any target creature you control, but specifically Angelo, gets a huge buff. So he will come in hot. So get ready. And I think next we're going to be looking at the villain of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, enough with these heroes. Let's go on to the real hero of Final Fantasy VIII, and that is Ultimisia. We did something very special on this card. It's the first card in Magic's history to be an uncommon that takes an extra turn. So this is an incredibly powerful card for an uncommon. When she comes into play, she does a little surveilling, you know, fills up your graveyard a little bit. And then finally, when you have, interesting number, 8 cards in your graveyard and 8 mana, you can turn her over to Ultimisia Omnipotent, take another turn, and I'll tell you, 7/7 Menace plus another turn is a pretty easy way to close out a game. So yeah, take that, heroes, take that.
Okay, do we have any Triple Triad fans in the room? Would you like to see some Triple Triad cards? Yeah, I asked, they won't let me show them. Okay. But believe me, they're in there. So, moving on pretty swiftly, we're going to go on to a little game called Final Fantasy IX. Here's Stephanie to tell us more.
I'm so excited to introduce my personal favorite of the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX was a fond farewell to the classic medieval fantasy setting. It paid homage to earlier games through its stylized character designs and was full of references and features from past games. One of our core creative pillars in this partnership was artistic authenticity. We needed to preserve the stylized character designs while interpreting it through the lens of Magic so we could offer something fresh and exciting while staying true to the heart of Final Fantasy IX. The story follows Zidane as he teams up with the Princess of Alexandria, Garnet, to stop Queen Braun and her army of black mages. It balances charm and lovable characters with an emotional, often heart-wrenching story of self-discovery and acceptance. As a teenager, the themes were so memorable and spoke to my angsty younger self. I went as far as getting my hands on the piano collections and learned to play a few iconic pieces by heart. I fondly remember replaying my save file over and over again just to rewatch those incredible cutscenes. This game was incredibly resonant, and as with every game in the Final Fantasy series, it was important that we did Final Fantasy IX justice.
Okay. Let's see
Final Fantasy IX
some
Justice sounds like a
cards.
big
Akil?
spin-off or something.
Yes. The first character we're going to look at is one of the antagonists from Final Fantasy IX, and that is Kuja Genome Sorcerer. Now, his illustration depicts a scene in which he is summoning an army of black mages against our heroes. He is also the head of the black-red archetype within the set that focuses on black mages, and he has 2 forms. At the end of each end step, he summons wizards to the battlefield, and once you have 4 more, he transforms into his more powerful version, Trance Kuja, that doubles the damage of all wizards
pretty
to
rough.
players
Whenever you
or
cast a
permanents you
non-creature
control.
spells,
And
this
check out
token deals
that
1 damage to each
beautiful wizard
opponent.
token.
You just keep generating them.
Up next, we have a card for the Magic fans. We haven't shown any Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus sheet cards. Check out this card reprint of Ragavan Nimble Pilferer as Zidane Tribal.
Great.
Gavin, who else from Final Fantasy IX is in this set?
Well, as a huge 9 fan, I'm really happy to show to you. That's the reaction I was hoping for, everybody. Here's Vivi. All right, so a little bit of black mages going on right here, right? We saw black mages a moment ago.
I haven't
cast
seen
a
that tiered
non-creature
thing.
spell,
That
you
tiered
ping them.
mechanic is pretty
But
tiered mechanic
Vivi's a little more
is pretty
curious
cool.
than that. Wants to get +1/+1 counters and then generate you mana equal to Vivi's power. So, not only will it generate mana as you cast more and more spells, but also if you say Giant Growth or put an equipment on them, it'll generate you tons and tons of mana. On the right-hand side there, we will see Fire Magic, which is a card with the new tiered mechanic. Tiered is a brand new mechanic appearing here in Final Fantasy. You've never seen this before. We knew we had to get abilities like Fire, Fyra, and Fyraga into the set somehow. So this is kind of like a modal kicker. It's on a handful of cards, and the more mana you put in,
Blizzard
the
magic,
bigger
Thunder
effect
magic.
you get, just like in Final Fantasy.
Okay, Gavin, you're sounding very enthusiastic. Is it okay that your favorite game is Final Fantasy IX, right? You put a little bit extra work into this one.
Yeah, as the lead set designer, I might get to put my thumb on the scale a little bit, and so I gave 9 a bit of extra love. That's my bias.
Talking about extra love, right now we're moving on to a game called Final Fantasy X. First game
That
on the
is certainly a fan
PlayStation 2,
favorite.
the story of Tidus and Yuna. It's an epic quest, and it's probably the reason that I'm around. The first Final Fantasy game to have actual voice acting in it. Without it, I wouldn't have a job. It's also one of our commander decks.
Oh, is he a voice actor
That's
or
true,
something?
and speaking
I
of
didn't
favorite
realize.
Final Fantasy series, of course I had to make a Final Fantasy X Commander deck. The thing about Commander decks is while the main set goes wide, touching all 16 games, these Commander decks go deep. They're going to get those heartwarming moments that follow Yuna and her party along, and while I'm not showing you that specific Yuna moment that you're probably all thinking right now, believe me, there is a beautiful card in the set for that. But let's talk about this deck. It is built around the Sphere Grid. That's what I wanted to do right away. It is a Counters Matters deck. In the game, you're moving pebbles around, getting new abilities and raising your stats. In the game, you're going to be moving your counters around like you're building the Sphere Grid. Tidus himself has that ability in the beginning to set up your party at the beginning of combat. And then cheer, whenever he connects, he will proliferate all of those counters, draw cards, and you will keep going and going for that goal. And yes, there is Blitzball in here.
I forgot that this card did.
Blitzball, baby. Okay, so that's Tidus, but where
One of the
is
decks that
Yuna's
I'm
Akil?
working on
you can't have
needs
Final
counters
Fantasy
too,
X
but
without
it's
my
not in
girl
those
Yuna.
colors, so...
For those who don't know, Yuna is a summoner that
wondering if I
travels
should just
through
make a deck that
Spira
has
alongside
all
her
those colors.
guardians, and her main mechanical
include
ability
both
is
them as not the commander.
power to summon Aeons onto the battlefield to aid her in battle. So this card focuses entirely on interacting with the Saga creatures in the set, resurrecting summons from the graveyard each turn, as well as buffing them while they are on the battlefield during your turn. And check out this beautiful borderless treatment as well.
Gorgeous. And from the summoner to the summoned, let's see one of the most iconic Aeons. How does this one work?
This is the correct reaction for Bahamut. Now, when I was a kid, if you asked me to picture the coolest possible thing I could ever think of, I would get you Bahamut very fast. So when we concepted this card, the conceptor, the artist, and the art director, we all agreed we had to capture the aura of Bahamut and put it into this card. So we see the moment,
it's
the
not an
first
aura,
time you summon it
it's a
in-game,
saga?
and if you look at the flavor
Are there
board,
any,
Mega
like,
Flare, you get
saga
to that
auras?
overdrive, and you know the game will be over.
That'd be an interesting mechanic for them to try. If they haven't done it yet, they will eventually, I'm sure.
So, also, this game has some of
Yeah,
the
the alt art
most
is pretty cool.
beautiful vistas in all of Final Fantasy. Let's show off some cool lands.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned some of those rare towns earlier. This is part of a 5-card cycle, one for each color, and for 5 different games. This is Zanarkand Ancient Metropolis. This does something we've never done before, which is put an adventure on a land. These are the only 5 adventures in the set. They're on the cycle of 5 lands, and it's a great flavor fit because they are all things that happen in that location. Of course, if you're hanging out in Zanarkand, you might encounter the Fates. You can look for all 5 of these rare lands in the set, 1 for each color.
Amazing. So before the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, there was the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XI.
Oh my God!
Here
yes,
we go.
my people!
And because it is an MMORPG,
I don't know enough about this. Are they working on like another MMORPG?
Yeah, so Final Fantasy XI as an MMO has a lot to explore, a lot to cover, a lot to dig into. It was my first MMORPG of all time. I spent countless hours, scouring the realms of NDL, whether I was making friends online or whether I was going up notorious monsters and absolutely just getting my butt kicked. I was just having the time of my life. So speaking of notorious monsters, let's talk about potentially the most notorious monster in that game. Just as a quick recap, if you don't know the story behind this character, this is a nigh unbeatable super boss end game for the toughest of alliances with the best gear, and even then it was very difficult to even approach taking down. If you take a look at his card, I wonder what kind of time you will have when you
that
go up
ability is
against it.
wild.
Now from something absolutely terrifying to something a little cuter, let's talk about the Dragoon's Wyvern.
Where are my Dragoons at?
Oh, I haven't seen that card either. That card's
Remember
adorable.
Wyverns? I love this little guy. I spent so much time trying to go after this advanced job specifically because I love the idea of having the Wyvern. And so that's what Final Fantasy is about. It's achieving that amazing job, class, fantasy, in these beautiful, amazing worlds, and then never forgetting the whimsy.
Here we go. There's one more. You've got something to show us, right, Zakil?
Yes, we've talked about monsters, we've talked about the sense of adventure. Let's talk about everyone's favorite NPC, the original Taro Black Mage from Final Fantasy XI, Shan Todo. Now, Shan Todo is the flagship uncommon, signpost uncommon within the set that focuses on spell slinging. When you cast non-creature spells, she gets buffs on the battlefield.
This
and
is
then
like
anything that costs more than
there's
4,
another
you
card
get
that
to draw
does
a
this,
card,
except you don't draw
which
cards.
is very
What's it
powerful
called?
in the context of limited and potentially
I have it
even
in
formats
my
like Commander.
I have it
Absolutely
in my
amazing. So from
red, white,
Final
blue
Fantasy XI to did someone say 1? Final Fantasy 12. We yin, we yang. Here we go. Dylan, give us the story.
Right, so Final Fantasy 12 takes the much beloved
But
world
that
of
one's certainly
Ivalice,
better.
and there are many adventures,
The
many
other one gets
stories
trampled,
happening here.
but that one you
In
draw
the intro,
cards
we
and
learned the
drawing cards
Arcadian
probably better.
Empire is beginning their conquest on Dalmasca, and we meet our heroes 2 years thereafter. We're introduced to Vaughn, Princess Ashe, and of course, Balthayer and Fran. I'd love to show you this card. This is a commander deck I'm building immediately when this set comes out. And so, of course, as Sky Pirates, they will care about piloting the straw, going up against, and hopefully winning the game very fast.
Amazing. Now it's time to hear from Stephanie, our art director, once again,
Another
to tell
card
us
that gives
about
you
some
additional
very important
It's
pieces
really,
of
they've
art.
really been going hard on the additional battle phases card lately.
So this is a very special story about the incredible Isamu Kamikoku Ryo. The city of Arcades is one of the first images made for Final Fantasy XII. Visually inspiring and dense with details, this piece immerses you in the world of Ivalice. This image was used
I
as a
always thought it was
promotional
weird
ad
that like
in a Japanese
walls are like a
magazine
creature
to get
and not like
artists
a land or
excited to work
something,
at Square
or like an
Enix on Final
artifact.
Fantasy
I mean,
XII.
some are
There are many
artifacts, but
employees who are currently at Square Enix
they're like
because of
artifact
this painting.
creatures. I don't know.
And in turn,
feels like it's a
Isamu
wall. It's not a
made
creature. It's
incredible
alive
friendships during his
generally.
time
Some of them
there.
are, but like
It's no exaggeration to say this painting changed lives. It stands out as an example of Isamu's artistic perspective to push the imagination and craft worlds that have never been seen before.
And what's amazing about that piece of art is there is a link between 12 and the next game in the series, because that same artist had a hand in designing what we're about to show you now.
ライトニングらしさっていうのをもう一回考えた時に、内面にその激しさは秘めているんですけど、外から見ると静かに佇んでるような姿が一番ライトニングらしいのかなっていう。ライトニングって武人なんですよね。侍のような女性なので、普通に立ってても常に剣構えてるんですよ、心の中では。 マジック・ザ・ギャザリングとファイナルファンタジーのコラボは
It's funny
僕自
watching
身
him
もす
draw
ごく
because
想像してな
that
かった
way of
コラボレ
drawing
ーシ
where
ョ
you're
ン
drawing
な
where
の
you're
で
like doing a bunch of like
マジ
strokes
かっ
like
て感
that
じ
while
で
you're trying to create a line. It's
そ
funny
こ
when
に
they teach you like when you're learning to draw like that's not the right way to do it. I don't know why I see kids do this all the time, but then you see like these super professional artists doing it. It's like, well, I mean, the artist for Final Fantasy does it. Like, I don't know, have you seen his stuff?
Dylan, tell us a little bit about the game Final Fantasy 13.
Final Fantasy 13 perhaps is the game that leans most into its science fiction elements as it thrusts us into the artificial world of Cocoon that floats above Grand Pulse. You see, in this world, we have these supernatural entities that are known as the Fall Sea. Though humanity fears them, they seek their protection. And the Fall Sea have the ability to designate La Sea, which are basically prophesized chosen warriors. This game takes a bit of a spin of if that's really a good thing or not. As we all come to find out, Lightning, our protagonist, and her party members have chosen to become these new chosen heroes. And they go on an adventure and a quest to fulfill their focus, which may end up bringing about the end of the world? Don't worry, they are our heroes, though. Let's talk about Lightning and some gameplay from Final Fantasy 13, Zakil.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy 13's primary game mechanic is a mechanic called Stagger.
Yeah, the
This
commander
mechanic
decks are
rewards you for exploiting your
super
enemy's weaknesses.
expensive.
Once you trigger the Stagger gauge, you're
They
able
weren't
to
that much
deal
at
additional
first.
damage within combat.
Even for like
so
the
it only
collector's
felt
ones,
right
I did
for
buy the
Lightning
collector's
to
ones for my
have a
friends
similar
because
ability called
for one of my
Stagger.
friends.
So let's take a look. She has a 3
buy
mana
and sell
3/2 with the
cards
ability
and
Stagger. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player,
I sold his
until your
cards,
next
and so
turn, if
why
a
he had
source
saved
will
up
deal
enough
damage to
money
that
from
player
that
or permanent
to
that
sell
player
to
controls, it
buy
deals
them.
double that
So
damage
he
instead.
got them for
And then
much
she has
less
these
than that,
small,
but
innocuous kind of buffs, meaning with
yeah.
First Strike and Trample. So if you attack with
I'm
her
not surprised
and let's
that's
just
how
say a
much they're
1/1
going for
creature,
now.
she has the ability to deal combat damage in the first strike phase, triggering Stagger, then buffing everything else you have on the battlefield, which is going to be quite good in red-white aggressive strategies.
And it is not often that Magic uses a mechanic for just one single card, but that is what has happened here.
In the
card do?
first strike.
Whenever Lightning deals combat damage to a player until your next turn, if a source would deal damage to that player or a permanent that player controls, it deals double that damage instead. Okay, so this would go after, right? Like if you have a, oh, well, she has first strike, that's why. Because presumably if you attack with this, she has first strike, that damage will happen, and then your wave of creatures that don't have first strike or they have double strike, whenever they're going through the not first strike combat phase, they'll all be dealing double damage.
Phase. Triggering Stagger, then buffing everything else you have
That's
on
pretty
the
sick.
battlefield.
That's a pretty sick ability.
Which is going to be
I
quite
like that.
good in red-white aggressive strategies.
And it is not often
kinda
that
wanna make
Magic
Commander around
uses
that,
a mechanic
kind
for
of.
just one single card, but that is what has happened here. Gavin, what have you done?
Yeah, this is something very special. This is something that we had to do a lot of talking and a lot of convincing, and it was such a perfect fit, literally a perfect fit for these two characters, Fang and Vanille. So here we are, Fang and Vanille. Now, if you know the story of Final Fantasy 13, these two characters are searching for each other, and they eventually find each other, and they do that well in the game, right? So when Vanille comes into play, you mill some cards, you get someone back, maybe it's Fang. Fang wants up to leave the graveyard, and then you get to draw cards. But toward the end of the game, you might know that they fuse into Ragnarok. And so the meld ability here actually allows you to turn the cards over and turn them into Ragnarok. They're both uncommon, so you can do this in drafts. And let me tell you, if you get off Ragnarok, you are going to win. It is a very, very cool moment, and literally the perfect encapsulation of these two characters.
Absolutely amazing. Okay, now
It's interesting for
we
them to
move on
make cards
to
like
the critically
that
acclaimed
specifically for
MMORPG.
drafting
Final
purposes.
Fantasy
I think they should have been Final Fantasy Tactics.
Personally, I like to think of myself as the weird adopted uncle of Final Fantasy 14, so thank you. And I'm so happy to be able to talk about that. Listen, Dylan, this is a game that everyone has an opinion about, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I just have 3 words for all of you out there. Hear, feel, think. Iconic words spoken by the Mother Crystal, spoken to all of you warriors of light out there. The critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV is often described as a theme park, of Final Fantasy history. And I just absolutely love that comparison. It takes content from all the previous titles, it remixes them, updates them, and it brings them to a modern audience. It introduces you to games, characters, stories from long past, and hopefully inspires you to go try out all of these amazing games yourself.
I don't know anything
now,
about
in the
this
game, of course, you are the Warrior of Light. You get to customize your character, pick your job, and embark on a journey where you call the shots. So whether you are going up against the Asian threat, perhaps, championing Hydaelyn's will, facing off the Garlean Empire, battling through the Dragonsong War, maybe going up against the bloodthirsty Xenos, or becoming the Warrior of Darkness, crying many, many tears at the end of creation, and most recently, enjoying a summer vacation. You are the Warrior of Light, and this is Final Fantasy XIV. You are all emblematic of the very wonderful community that Final Fantasy XIV is known for. Wonderful, friendly, kind, empathetic, and we thank you so much for being here and being a part of this wonderful, wonderful weekend. I can just personally attest to how amazing this game is and how profound it has been on all of us.
Daniel, this is obviously the last of the Commander deck, so I imagine you had to play a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV, didn't you?
Exactly. Unlike Dylan, and sounds like a lot of you, when I was first assigned this project, I had never actually played Final Fantasy XIV. So naturally, over the next month, I put 200 hours in with my best friend from work. Getting all the way to Shadowbringers, I played Dancer and Black Mage for those curious. And we had to get Hildebrand Manderville into the set. It was so important to be genuine to the fans because you can play the entire campaign of Final Fantasy XIV and not even see this lovable character. This card itself refers to his first chapter, The Rise and Fall of Gentlemen, where there are plenty of zombies, and Hildebrand is not dead after all. You can find Hildebrand and all the other Scions in the Final Fantasy XIV Commander deck, led by none other than Y'shtola herself. Where as you cast your non-creature spells with mana value 3 or greater, you're going to drain the table, draw cards, and continue controlling the game as long as you manage those cooldowns. Enjoy the deck, please.
Amazing. And whilst Y'shtola's right here, I think it's a great time to touch base with another of our celebrity artists talking about their specific version of Y'shtola.
自分がギャザリングの絵を描けるのっていうのがちょっとびっくりしまして、今回その両方のプレイヤーの橋渡しになればいいんじゃないかなと思っています。僕割とその油彩風というか厚塗りっていう方で絵を描くことが多かったんですけど、やっぱりそれってギャザリングとかからかなりインスパイアを受けていました。これはテイストとしてはそのファイナルファンタジーのその14のエフェクトの綺麗さとかちょっと目指してデザインさせていただきました。ヤシュトラは強い意志を持ったキャラクターなので、そこら辺が再現できるようにしたかったっていうところがあって、ちょっと人知を超えたような雰囲気を出せればいいかなっていうところで、少し凛々しい感じの雰囲気にしました。はい。
I don't know nothing of these characters, so I cannot comment.
Obviously, there are loads of cards still to show you, Zakil. Let's start with that sweet version of Y'shtola.
Yes, so here is main set Y'shtola Ruel. She's a 6-mana 3/5 cat druid that has the ability at the beginning of your end step, blink a creature, and then if it is the first end step, you effectively take an additional end step. So you're able to gain advantage with creatures on the battlefield that have entered the battlefield triggers by blinking them, and then, just like the last Y'shtola card that we showed at the face of the commander deck, also manipulate and use end step triggers to your advantage. So playing the main set Y'shtola within the commander deck Y'shtola deck is probably quite good. And you know, one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy XIV are the summons. What's up?
Yeah, so let's talk about one you all might recognize, Summon Primal Odin. If you've gone up against this in 14, you know you're in for a tough time. Odin likes killing stuff. Let's start with that first chapter. Blows up one of your opponent's creatures. That's neat. It's the second chapter where things get really gnarly. If you know Odin, you know you do not want to get hit by this attack. It will take you out. You'll take out your whole party. If Odin hits you during a second chapter, you lose the game. Do not get hit by Odin's second chapter. It is bad. If you survive that, if your creatures perhaps block by a little bit of time, you still have to contend with the third chapter.
That's gonna get really nasty.
You're gonna, because what you're gonna draw 2 cards and make
what
each
you can
player
do is
lose 2 life.
Oh, you're gonna want to, if you can get this, if you can get on 2, and then you're just gonna start using abilities that can remove counters from it. So when it gets to 3, you just remove a lore counter off it, get it back to 2, and just keep doing that over and over with like nesting ground or something. That's That's pretty nasty.
They'll even draw another Odin.
Nesting ground.
Now earlier I mentioned that there would be some job select equipment from Final
Those are just
Fantasy
two that come to
14.
mind.
So where are all my summoners at?
That's an interesting deck to build.
Perfect. Well, here is the Summoner's Grimoire, another job select equipment. So when this comes into play, you make a 1/1 hero and attach it to it. Now, whenever that creature attacks, you get to put a creature from your hand on the battlefield. So it's like a little elvish piper for you longtime Magic fans. But if it is an enchantment card, it enters tapped and attacking. So that enchantment creature like Odin will come in right away. One other tiny thing I want to call out is in front of the equip ability, you'll see what it says there, Abraxas. Well, that is actually the weapon that is shown in the art there. Just a little nod to the different weapons that are used. The Final Fantasy 14 team thought it'd be really cool to actually reference the weapons that are in the art for the 14 tied job select equipment. So you'll find that on the equipment in the set.
Much of the major narrative of Final Fantasy 14 is the metaphysical conflict between Hydaelyn and Zodiark. So today we're going to show you one half of that conflict with Zodiark, Umbral God. He is a 5/5 with Indestructible God, and when he enters, each player sacrifices half the non-god creatures they control, rounded down. Now that's an interesting story element. If you're a Final Fantasy 14 player, you'll have to tell me if you think that is spot on to the story that Zodiark might be involved in. And here we can see the moment where I wiped every raid I was ever in doing this trial. I could not for the life of me remember this mechanic. I'm so sorry to everyone who was playing me. I was your Gunbreaker main tank, not using my cooldowns correctly.
I know there are people in the audience that are thinking, oh, there's one person from Final Fantasy 14 I'd love to see. Here he is, you thirsty people.
So...
But like
I mentioned before that you might find
they showed
villains
this
in the
character
commander
last
deck.
time.
Well, here's one every Final Fantasy 14 player knows. It's Emmett Selk. Now the villains in the decks play on a little different axis. Emmett here will cast spells from your graveyard over time because Ascians know their history, but they will still trigger all of the non-creature matters cards in your deck.
Okay, here we go. 14's done. We're now moving on to 15. We are going like a rocket ship. It's again another great example of the way in which Final Fantasy has reinvented itself over the years. Dylan, what's the story?
So in Final Fantasy 15, we see this dramatic tale of epic war, political conspiracies, ancient magic, opposing kings, but ultimately it puts the story of friendship and camaraderie center stage. We follow Prince Noctis and his very best of friends, Ignis, Prompto, and Gladiolus, on a road trip across the modern fantasy world of Eos. And broiled in this conflict, we are going to go up against many cool monsters, cinematic boss battles, epic duels, but one of the biggest things that Final Fantasy 15 left on me was just the very sense of time and pace. The slow, quiet moments you spend with your friends, pulling pranks at each other, making food at camp, discovering new recipes, listening to music while you're driving around. It does remind me a little bit of the four of us and how we kind of made this set, so I kind of have a soft spot for this. Excuse me if I start crying.
I'm also there as well. Thanks, guys. Okay, let's look at some cards, please. Zakiel, take us through it.
Yeah, so Noctis is the main character from Final Fantasy 15, and his most unique mechanical ability is called Armiger, which allows him to wield the 13 royal weapons that come from his lineage that are depicted in his artwork. So his ability allows you to cast artifact spells from the graveyard as a nod to the Armiger ability. And also, take a look at this beautiful borderless artwork.
Let's look at Arden.
But of course, opposed to Noctis is the game's antagonist, Arden. And here we see celebrity artist Roberto Ferrari has captured his signature grin and his powers over the Star Scourge. And we actually see that we use that as a flavor word because while you have Arden in play, you too will be making your own army of demons to take over the world.
Okay, that's Final Fantasy 15 done. We're finally here, guys.
I didn't even know Final Fantasy 16 came out until like a month ago.
Final Fantasy 16 has arrived. I don't remember any of it. Dylan, what happened?
So just to catch you up to speed, Ben, I don't know if you've heard of this game, but this takes place at Valisthea. It is the latest entry in the mainline Final Fantasy
That's
series.
That's how far behind I am in
one of the
terms
most
of what's going on in the video game
and
scene.
mature titles the franchise has seen thus far. It tells this gritty and grim tale of magic and explores the notions of free will. We are introduced to our protagonist, Clive Rossfields, when he is but a young boy. And we watch him grow over decades of in-game story as he turns into the epic hero who shall deny fate itself.
Is the
And as we all know, in this game, the
host or
summons
whatever,
are
is he
of
the voice
paramount
actor for him?
importance because Clive is someone known as a dominant, that who harbors the ability of the summons, the icons inside of them. And in the
Someone's a
game,
dominant,
our
huh?
heroes
That's,
turn directly
that's
into
interesting.
their summons. I wonder if that sparked any good design ideas?
What
Well,
was
it certainly
I'm
did.
not
And
even
this is
gonna
actually
comment
quite
on
an
that. I'm not
interesting
gonna comment
story
on it.
because, well, we've been working on the set for 4 years. We
I'm
said
sure
that earlier.
everyone in the world's
Well,
made
as we
that
all know,
joke
this
already,
game came out 2
considering I know
years ago,
nothing
so it
about
came
it.
out during the development process of the set. So we actually had a weekend when the game came out, and we just all started playing and trying to figure out, okay, what could go in? What could go in? This card, this card, this card. It was a great time.
Massive call out. Zakiel was always 2 hours ahead of me and Daniel, and we were like nonstop playing. My wife is here; she can confirm I was not sleeping at all, and somehow he was always ahead of me. I have no idea how you were just so. It was a wild weekend. Our group chat exploded with like 1,000 messages every single night. Like, this is an awesome concept. This could be a card.
You have to get this character in there, right?
I totally missed that quest. I have to go do it. So.
Okay, guys, be quiet. I want to talk now. Okay. God, we get it. You played the game. I was in it.
Yeah.
Listen, I think it's time that we previewed some cards, and I know what you all want to see. But first, let's see a character that is incredibly important to Clive in this story.
Yeah, so this is Jill, Shiva's dominant. This card shows off all of her icy
Didn't even
powers.
recognize.
So
I
on
looked at her
Jill's
card. I'm
side,
like,
she
oh, this is a
comes
cool
in
card. I
and
didn't even
unsummons a
recognize her
creature.
name.
Then when she transforms into Shiva, she will make one of your creatures unblockable twice. Then she will tap all of your opponent's lands. They cannot stop you. And then unlike other summons that go away, she goes back to Jill, re-triggering that Enter's ability to unsummon and continue using those icy powers.
Okay, now this is the moment you're all waiting for. This is the moment that I've been waiting for 2 hours. You want to see the Clive card?
That's funny. Can you please put it on the screen, though? It just feels like it'd be easier to read and see. And
I have been sweating under that thing for 2 hours for this exact moment. Let's see it on the screen.
Okay, thank God.
So here we have.
That's some pretty sick art, though. I know nothing about this game.
To be
That's some
clear,
pretty
that is
sick
the
art.
correct reaction. Yes. So here we have Clive and Ifrit.
Oh,
we knew we
I saw
needed
the
an
alt art
epic
for this
card,
card.
and so that's exactly what we made. On the front side, Clive, of course, has Devotion to Red. Of course, it is the only Devotion card in the main set, but it fits his character so well. Who else would be so devoted to Red as
Or
Ifrit's
is this the
dominant?
alt art? I saw
Then,
the other art.
When you're ready, perhaps the turn after you play him, you can pay 6 mana, flip him over, he fights a creature right away. Bam! Ifrit shows up. Time for that epic boss battle. Then, you get some mana the next turn. A turn after that, he flips back to Clive, if your opponent's even still alive by then. And you get to do the whole discard your hand and drop again before preparing to turn him back into a Ifrit. So,
For sure.
you
For
know,
a mono
pretty
red
powerful
card, though,
combination of abilities
it's
here. Wouldn't
like,
you say, Ben?
yeah,
I would
mean,
say he's very cool. I would say he's the best one. You know, don't take my word for it. Okay, guys, that's it. We have done 16 mainline games, but I know, are you excited for this? Zakiel, when can we get our hands on all this Final Fantasy goodness?
Yeah, so Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy releases globally on June 13th with pre-releases starting on June 6th. Now, if you're a Final Fantasy fan who has never played Magic before, I suggest you start with the starter kit, which comes with 2 60-card decks that are pre-constructed, along with a learn-to-play booklet and digital download codes to play on Magic Arena. We also have our Play Booster, which includes all of the cards that we previewed today, everything that is standard legal, as well as the Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus
Play boosters
sheet.
don't include
Now,
everything
the
they
additional
showed
products
today.
that we have
Like,
here,
they
as
include
Daniel mentioned,
the-
are the 4 commander decks that are
They
focused
include,
on
like, the
individual
cards, but
games,
not, like, the different
6,
versions of
7,
the cards.
10, and 14. You can relive these games.
As a
you
matter
played
of fact,
before
it's not going
or
to include
learn
the
about
commander
them if you never
cards.
have.
So
They're
not
some of
even
our
all of
favorites,
the
and
cards
we
in
think
terms
that
of
they're
like just
such an
not
amazing
just not
product.
all the cards, like
We
just
also
not
have
all the
our
cards
collector
at all.
SKUs in the collector commander decks, which are the same mechanical
That was-
identity
that wasn't
of
even
those
an
commander
accurate
decks, just
statement he made.
available in 100% foil, as well as our collector boosters, which include all of the mechanical cards from the main set, many from the commander decks, and the awesome, amazing treatments such as the golden chocobo. Here's our complete product suite, including the beautiful gift bundle featuring Ifrit and Bahamut from Final Fantasy 16.
The gift bundle looks pretty
And
cool.
again, this
Just
set
from a
releases
design.
globally on June 13th with a variety of play events starting then, running through the remainder of that month, and MagicCon Vegas, along with Pro Tour Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy on the weekend of June 20th.
And of course, if you're a digital gamer, Final Fantasy is also coming to Magic the Gathering Arena with 3 different bundles you can pick up. The first, of course, is the pack bundle. You might be wondering, Gavin, why is it called the pack bundle? Well, great news. It comes with 50 booster packs, 5 golden packs. You get this cool VV sleeve, the VV version, all kinds of awesome stuff going on there. Let's go on to the next bundle called the Pass Bundle. You might be wondering, why is this called the Pass Bundle? Well, this comes with Clive, comes with Noctis, comes with cool sleeves for both of them, and you get access to the Mastery Pass. Now, the Mastery Pass will let you unlock those awesome chocobos for Jason Tronder we saw earlier. You get a regular chocobo at level 1, a Jace chocobo at level 25, and the Tronder chocobo at level 50. And then finally, we've got the Play Bundle. You can imagine why it's called that. You get tons of tokens to go play in drafts. Plus, you get Kefka, Terra, some accoutrement for them, and my personal favorite, the Moogle Companion that can hang out with you in a game. And who doesn't want a Moogle hanging out with them? You can go pre-order that on Magic the Gathering Arena.
I hate the fact that I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Amazing. So let's move
Play
on.
Magic the Gathering where your companion's not even a Magic the Gathering card.
This amazing trailer.
Moogle is a Magic the Gathering card. Shut up.
I've been waiting for this.
Have you?
I'm ready as I'll ever be. Final Fantasy is coming to Magic the Gathering.
Need that Jumbo Cactuar.
Come to me, Ifrit! Draw swords. Cast spells. Play heroes and villains from all 16 core games.
They know how to make it feel epic. I mean, this is a pretty good trailer.
People are depending on me.
Years I've waited for this chance. It's time to shape your story. Shall we?
You know what? I think there's still some people who might be on the fence about tucking into this, right? If there are, let's see if Stephanie can persuade those who might not want to get involved.
All right, folks. When you think of the essential ingredients,
If you want to play
Final
standard,
Fantasy,
these cards are
Final
going to be
Fantasy,
standard. So
what comes to mind? You've got your classics, your chocobos,
You have no choice.
summons, crystals. We're fans. We know all this.
even
But
though
there's one more thing
I think they're cool anyway.
that has been in nearly every game of the Final Fantasy series that we haven't quite talked about yet. Or should I say someone?
Oh,
It's
the
Sid.
yeah.
Better yet, Sid's. Because why settle for just one?
Okay, folks, this is how we're going to do it. Remember when I split the room up in 2? That went well, didn't it? We're doing it again. Okay, this side of the room, I'm going to say a number. This side of the room, we're going to shout one word and one word only. And what word's that going to be? You know it. We're going to start with 2, okay? Because that's when he first appeared. So it'll go something like this. We'll say a number. It'll start with 2 like this. Say 2 with me.
2.
Okay? You ready? Obviously, you're not going to say 2 the whole time. That would be insane. Okay?
What?
Don't. I think there's quite a few people watching at home. They're going to be so annoyed. We've just stayed on 2 for hours. Okay, are you ready with me? Here we go. 2.
Oh, I didn't see a lot of these arts when people were posting about them. It's interesting. I also didn't know he was in that many games. I knew he was in Kingdom Hearts. So I was like, oh, he must be in Final Fantasy VII.
Everybody It has been absolutely awesome to spend time with you. I hope you've had fun. I hope you are going to spend lots of money on this.
Kind of a
Please do. Thank you
kind
for
of a
coming.
tasteless
I want to
joke.
thank
People are
the
kind of like not
incredible
happy about the
panel.
price thing.
Gavin, Zakil, Daniel, Dylan, Stephanie. I've been your host, Ben Starr. You've been amazing. Thank you for coming.
All right then.
The internet.
Stop. All right. Well, those were some interesting reveals. Nothing that like, I mean, I mostly like think about things in terms of Commander. I haven't played Standard too much. I play Standard on like MTG Arena. I don't know how much of this will translate because I haven't played MTG Arena Standard in like a bit, but I don't know. I'm curious to see like what cards like sort of end up standing out and things like that in terms of what will end up being really big deals. Yeah, that guy is kind of an a-hole, for sure. That was sort of like my first take on it. I was like, oh, it's because he's the voice actor and maybe he's just playing the character. Maybe the character's like an a-hole. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll sort of see what happens. I'm curious if any of them are going to become like these really disastrous things. A lot of them seem like that they just take too much time. It just seems like they're going to take too long to get to the point where they're going to be really impactful in like Standard or something. But I mean, I guess we'll see. It is interesting that they're like, oh, well, these cards are going to be really destructive together, but we made them uncommon so that you're likely to draft them in like a pre-release or in a draft or something. I'm like, that's an interesting way to go about designing rarity for a card, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. Well, thank everyone who stopped by and watched. Yeah, I'm gonna try to stream more often. I don't know if I'll be streaming tomorrow. If you did like what you watched, if you did like me watching a video and then commenting like once every 10 minutes because there was either not a ton to comment over or, you know, some of the stuff was just really enrapturing. But if you did like it, I would very much appreciate a subscribe or a follow. Definitely appreciate that. But yeah, thanks everyone who watched, and I will